I'm Lou Scott, and this is the Geppetto Room, where you don't have to be creative to be creative. You just have to be you. Because what we're going to do is we're going to explore and explain techniques, technologies to help you make it easier for you to make transformative decisions and decisions about where you work, the way you play, and the way you actually be just a Vermonter. Now, we have to be especially relevant today about our transformative thinking because of the COVID situation. Now, I know we can be proud. We can be proud that in our state, we actually have a flat performance of the disease state and so forth, where we don't have that many cases, and we can be proud of that. However, we cannot be too overconfident. We still have other problems we have to avoid, and this is very important. We have to avoid trying to solve new problems with old ideas. You can't do it. We have to have transformative ideas. Because other than the COVID, we still have our regular problems. We have our demographic problems. We have our inner city problems. We have downtown areas not being as productive as they could be. We have infrastructure problems. And we have specific problems related to COVID. Now, for example, one of the specific problems we have in COVID is teaching at home, virtual learning, homeschooling, whatever you want to call it. That's a major problem, and it's causing a lot of frustration. That's why today we have Mary Feldman, who's an educator. Her present position is she is the executive director of the Parent-Child Center of Rutland County. She's also an educator with a tremendous amount of experience both in teaching and administration. She has advanced degrees, and let me read them, from the University of Scranton, from the University of Pennsylvania, and Temple University. And she's going to share with us today things that are going to help us do three things. They're going to ease the anxiety you have of teaching your children at home. It's going to reinforce the idea that by teaching children at home, they can learn. They can learn. And the third thing is, what they learn, they will retain. She's going to share those things with us, and we're going to be, hopefully, we'll be a better person, or better teachers after actually we hear this information. Now, from that point on, I'm going to turn it over to Mary. And Mary, hi, how are you?
Hi, Lou. How are you?
Mary, the Geppetto Room is now all yours.
Oh, boy. Well, I hope you can help me keep it going. Otherwise, it'll sound like a monologue. The first thing I want to talk about today is using every opportunity as a teaching tool. So everything is a teachable moment. And the focus of this presentation is for everybody who interacts with children in any kind of manner, because we're always teaching children, no matter how old they are. The first topic I want to talk about today was COVID awareness and a curriculum that you can use as a learning opportunity regarding COVID. I used to be a middle school teacher a long time ago in Florida, and there was a really bad flu season. And the population and the community that we lived in were all elderly, and so they were at the greatest risk of dying from the flu. And so our school used that as an opportunity to teach children and middle schoolers about hand washing and about having empathy for other members of our community who were at greater risk. So it was a real great opportunity to demonstrate compassion, and then we learned all about the flu. Here, I think that for children, first of all, we want to mitigate any fear that they have. And by educating them, then that will help with their fear. The other thing is we want to educate them about community and wearing masks. So you and I wear a mask in the community, and it's not just about preventing disease. Interestingly enough, the CDC recently came out and said that people who've been wearing masks all along have been actually protecting themselves. And initially, we were all asked to wear masks because it was protecting our community members.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. And so I look at masks as highly symbolic. First of all, it says that you understand how disease spreads and that this is something you can do. And second of all, it's a way of showing solidarity with our community and saying, you matter to me, your health matters to me.
So it's a lesson right there for the children.
Absolutely. And it's about empathy and compassion. And again, teaching kids about COVID is a learning opportunity, COVID-19. So what are we going to tell kids about COVID that they can handle? And everything I'm about to share with you now is from the CDC website on how to talk to kids about COVID. I like to go to the primary source. So the first thing is you want to tell children that COVID-19 is a germ. And there are tons of books at the library. There are tons of resources online. I'm going to share a few of them a little bit later about just the basic understanding of how germs spread and how viruses spread. The second thing is to remain calm, to let kids know that we are all working together to prevent the spread. And there are things that we can do, that we can control, that will keep us safe. Wear a mask, social distancing, washing your hands effectively for 20 seconds, and not touching your face. That's a hard one for little kids because they're always
Yes.
touching.
It's a hard one for everybody.
That's a hard one, yeah, because we move.
Because it's still there.
Yeah, right, and we lean in our hand, we sit like that. So I think that's really important. But those are things we can control. And so my son is always saying, you know, will I get COVID and do I have it? I have a little tickle in my throat. And I say to him, the things that we can control are wearing a mask, keeping a safe distance from others, washing our hands, and not touching our face, and focusing on what we can control, not what we don't have control over. I also think it's important to reassure people that they are safe when they do these things, that they're as safe as they can be. Not an artificial sense of safety, but this is how we keep safe. Another thing I think is important for kiddos is to really be careful about blame and stigma. So somebody has the COVID, or it came from a particular country, or these people are responsible for it. And then all of that, of course, is rooted in ignorance, okay? So we really want to be careful, again, to use this as an opportunity to say, it's a germ. And germs and viruses replicate, and they spread, just like the cold. And we don't hold any one particular group.
And not give the lesson of blaming to the children.
Correct, right, exactly. So that's all part of the COVID curriculum. These are things that you can teach children. I think it's important also to watch what your kids are watching and listen while they're talking, because misinformation gets spread all the time. So misinformation could be something along the lines of, you know, you really don't have to wash your hands for 20 seconds. That's an exaggeration. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories. And so it's not true. It's not real. Yeah. And I just take it back and focus it on the cold is real. COVID-19 is real. We wash our hands to prevent colds and flu. We wash our hands to prevent COVID-19. And just removing some of the exaggeration around some ideas.
A lot of fake stuff on social media.
Yes.
It really doesn't make any sense. They attack masks. It just doesn't make any sense to kids. You got to reinforce the right things to do for the kids.
And keep going back to the facts. Some people think that I'm going to wash my hands and wear my mask. Some people think this, but science tells us washing my hands and wearing a mask is a good thing to prevent any
Respect
disease.
the science.
Yes, always go back to the science. And then I think it's important to provide thoughtful and developmentally appropriate information based on the age of the child, because you don't want to limit information, but you also want to give children information that they can handle. For young children, the idea that you can die from this is very scary. But I think that high schoolers and middle school students understand the repercussions, because middle school, high school, and college age students are the least likely to engage in the social distancing that is necessary. And so when you let them know how high the stakes are, then they might reduce some of those risky behaviors. And the final thing is every single day, teach and reteach and reteach the things that we have control over. Just drive that point home. You know, in the morning when my son is getting ready for his day, I say to him, did you have your breakfast? Did you brush your teeth? I know, poor kid. And then I say, did you take your temperature? Because it's important for us as you go out into the world to monitor your temperature. Do you have your mask? These kinds of things, just normalizing these behaviors. A resource for families online, there's a fantastic tech resource called Brain Pop and Brain Pop Junior. Most school districts have a subscription. I'm almost certain that the Rutland Library would have access to this resource.
Brain Pop?
Brain Pop, yes. And so Brain Pop has wonderful science videos about COVID-19, and it's really fun and engaging, developmentally appropriate. And they also have games you can play, but there's science and health information. It is such a viable resource, but you can use that to kind of wrap up your COVID.
You have to subscribe to that?
You do.
Okay.
You do. But most school districts that I'm aware of have purchased a subscription for children, and the teacher could tell them, but in the very least, I bet the library.
So the parents should just ask the teachers if it's available?
Yes.
Okay.
But the good news is that all of the COVID-19 instructional videos that they have are free. So there's a fair amount of free material that you can go and access. You don't necessarily have to have a subscription.
The idea that you have to explain COVID to the children before you get even into the other studies is very important. The idea to relax them so they're aware, they don't have any anxieties, and can concentrate more on their studies, whatever it is, at home.
Sure.
That's a big, important element.
I think that I think you really hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
And information's important. Information dissolves ignorance.
Yeah.
So that way we know what we're doing. The second thing I want to talk to you today about is the Magic 15. This is something
The Magic 15.
Brain Pop, and now we've got COVID-19, Brain Pop, and now we have the Magic 15. So you and I were talking earlier, Lou, about what parents can do at home or caregivers can do at home as they're managing, the complexity of educating children. Everything that I'm doing is everything I'm suggesting here is connected to higher order thinking, is connected to science, connected to literacy, math. The statistics behind COVID-19 is all math. So the suggestions that I'm making right here are things that could easily last parents 3 months of work to do at home. 15 minutes is the magic number for students to make substantial long-term reading gains. And you and I talked last time about the achievement gap. Low-income kids score lower. So a phenomenal statistical pool of 2 million students were surveyed, and they ran, of course, all these algorithms. And what they found out at the end of it is that students who read 0 to 14 minutes per day actually have a decrease in gains, and students who read 15 minutes or more per day have exceptional gains. But 15 is the magic number. It's right in the middle. 54% of all students right now, today, read less than 15 minutes per day.
I was told once by somebody I highly respected that if I read, and I wasn't reading at the time that much, if I read 15 minutes a day, I could read 20 books completely in a year, and which was a minimum. And I thought that was fascinating. Just 15 minutes a day, you can get that much kind of knowledge.
It's wonderful. I mean, and that is good information, because kids always want to have a target, and that's the way to hit a target. What research also showed was that socioeconomic status, gender, family structure, and the amount of homework a student does per night, none of that is as impactful as whether or not students are reading 15 minutes or more per day.
Really?
Nothing.
That statistics showed that it wasn't impact. The reading was much more interesting.
Yes. So if you take that, and I took all of this information, this data, and I came up with a very, very sophisticated statement. Here it is. Poor kids who read more score higher than wealthy kids who read less. So reading is a great equalizer. It doesn't fix everything, but it's an equalizer. And students who read actually have greater life satisfaction, and it's more important it's more important than any of those other factors. It's because they can engage in another world. As kids get older, the achievement gap gets worse and worse. And so I think it's important that we pay attention to our middle school students, our high school students, and college level students that they're reading for enjoyment. Finally, on this particular topic, words, 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 words. Students who read less than 15 minutes a day over the course of their education will only be exposed to 13,700 words. But students who read, sorry, I got that incorrect. If you read 15 minutes per day, you're exposed to 13,700 words over the course of your education. But students who read less than 15 minutes, 1,500 words. Vocabulary is so important.
It's dependent on your reading. Plus, not only the thoughts that
Yes.
you will read, the new thoughts, but the vocabulary.
So vocabulary, you read 15 minutes a day, you read for fun, your world and your brain grows and your vocabulary grows, your ability to communicate also grows. So, should you read to babies? What do you think, Lou?
What?
Should I read to babies? You think it's important to read to infants?
I don't. That's an interesting thing. You're the teacher. You're the educator. I don't know. Read to. Yes, I heard that. I read that. I read that.
Of course you
That it's important to read to babies. Yes.
Yes.
People have even talked when a mother was gestating in pregnancy. People were reading things.
Absolutely.
And there was some kind of correlation for that. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. There's things we don't understand that are understandable when you think about them.
I'm glad that you knew that. And I wasn't even going to bring up the gestation. So reading while you're pregnant is good because it gets the baby used to the tone of your voice and the sounds and rhythm of language. So yes, read to babies. They will associate reading with emotional intimacy because they're sitting on the lap. They're reading the book. You show them how to hold the book. You show them to read left to right. You show them the front of the book, the back. They pick up all of this without any direct instruction. They also learn dialogue, memory, how to concentrate and stay on task. So many things. So as soon as you can, start reading to your baby, preferably before they're born, but read to babies. Developmentally, board books are the best thing for babies because they want to eat all the pages. So they get a lot of give with the board books. I think also it's important to create rituals for reading. One of the rituals that I did in my home when my child was growing up was that not just at the end of the day, but during the day, in the afternoon, a quiet reading time. And then after his bath, sit down and you read your books before you get into the bed because you want it to be its own special time. A great resource that's online for parents that has, again, a tremendous number of free resources is called Tumbleweed. And Tumbleweed. So some parents, I worked with parents who didn't speak English. And they wanted their children to be able to read. So Tumbleweed reads books aloud. And you can have the book right there on your lap, and you can follow along with the animation. And there's really beautiful books that are out there. And then there's also wordless books where they just talk through the book. So Tumbleweed, we've covered Brain Pup, Tumbleweed, and the Magic 15. Those are our three. I'm going to kind of keep reteaching and driving it home. How the Parent-Child Center can help you.
Yeah.
We can provide you with books. We have an online story time. We have an after-school, school-age program at our Brandon location where we have staff who are trained in reading assessment and trained in identifying which level the child is on so they can be reading just right books for them. We can help you connect with your child's school or the teacher. If there's anything that's going on academically that you don't understand, we'll help.
So any confusion right now, they can make a call to you to the Parent-Child Center, and you can get those answers for them.
We can help broker the conversation. We ask you to just give us a call or write to us, info@theparentchildcenter.org. And then a few more things you can do at home. You can have your child draw a picture of a story that they're reading. That is the easiest thing, and they love doing it. And then they will either write down, don't worry about spelling, They'll write down what they think the story is about, or you can scribe. They can tell you, and you write it down. You can do crafts based on a story, read to a pet, make a video on your phone of your child reading. That way they can watch themselves reading. They can read under the table in a tent. They can retell the story to a friend on the phone and talk about it. Go to the library. And then finally, parents need to model reading. So and if you want a backpack full of books that you can send home that has a topic for the whole family, contact the Parent-Child Center. We'll send you home with a backpack full of books.
Those are great suggestions about. I like the idea of the modeling concept that everybody, the family reads.
Yes.
The family reads.
Yes.
And that's very interesting. So they all can, and all this information not only is showing up on these slides here on the show, but they can call you anytime and get all and filled in like that. Well,
you can call us anytime.
I'll tell you, Mary, that's been very full, very full. You should have your own show.
Oh boy.
I want to thank Mary, and I want to thank you for watching. But I have some closing remarks that I like to bring up. If you have ideas, if you have concepts, transformative concepts that you want to share, send them in, and we'll discuss them here. Or, even better, come on the show. Let's discuss those things. If we're going to do this, if we're going to try to really flatten the line and get rid of the pandemic and go on to the normal rather than the new normal, if there's such a thing, then we're going to have to do it together. And that's very important. And today, we're facing an enormous amount of uncertainty. And I realize that people have written me and talked to me about all this uncertainty, and they have some concerns. Some concerns. So I did some research, and I came upon an article that was put out by, I forgot right now who put it out, but I thought it was very interesting and so forth. I think it came out of ARP. And what they did is they did a historical perspective study. They tried to see what was happening in the past and can it be compared to what's happening today, and what is the result of those things. And they answered several questions, and let me read some of these questions and some of the answers. So we're going to end this show with some very good news on top of all the good information we got from Mary. One of the things that we all worry about, obviously, is will the economy recover? Yeah, well, if you study the 1918 pandemic, in which I think 30, 40 million people around the world died, okay? It was 1918. We were at the doldrums of the end, the lowest point in the economy worldwide. But in less than 2 or 3 years, we were into the roaring 20s. The roaring 20s not only were gaiety and dancing and so forth, but were economic booms. So the reality of coming out of a pandemic and recovering the economy, yes, it will happen. It's inevitable. Another question that was asked about is, well, look at all the small businesses that went out of business. Okay, well, not really. There are certain businesses that will never recover from COVID, but that's a small percentage. The reality of small businesses is that they go out of business. The average small business only lasts about 3 or 4 years, if that. So part of being a small businessman is going in and out of business. So there's no relationship to the COVID. Those businesses will continue to come in and come out. Some will exist, some will pass away. Another thing that I came upon is that what will happen to your savings? Okay, now, yes, there's a possibility. Now, what about savings? Savings is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You acquire money for savings for the future by saving it over a long period of time. When this is over, you'll get back to that marathon, and you'll have your savings for the future. Don't worry about it. Home values collapsing. I thought this was interesting. In 2007, the real estate was booming until the building bubble, where the bubble burst, and people were actually leaving their homes because their mortgages were more valuable than their homes. Okay, they were leaving. It just busted. Now, will that return? We're feeling some of that now. The reality is that within 3 or 4 years, the business of housing increased by 29% in 4 or 5 years. It was booming. It surpassed what was happening at the time in 2007 before the bust. The bottom line of all this is, you have to enjoy happiness every day, whether it's COVID or not. This is the time. Look at the things that you can do today. You can spend more time with your children. You can have more effect on their children, more effect on their futures. You should spend more time in the outdoors. The forests of our state have things to tell us. One of the things I heard recently, and this is what I heard, is that you should brainstorm in the forest. Brainstorming in the forest is brainstorming with your soul, which means walking in the forest and being silent, and it's something you should do every day. Being silent and brainstorm with your soul. You'll use this time in COVID to better your life in the future. Seek new interests. Seek new skills. You have the time to do that. This is the opportunity to do that. Start to think about things that you haven't thought about in the past. Think this is the time to do that. You can be happy. Eliminate the depression that I hear that's happening to so many of us. Now with that, this is the Geppetto Room, where you don't have to be creative to be creative. You just have to be you. I want to thank Mary. I want to thank you for watching. I'm Lou Scott. Until next time.